Order. I'm just giving the Minister a chance to get settled. Okay, and the mover to get settled. I'm a very generous chairman, as you can see from that. Yeah, okay. So, John Whitby to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir John. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship today. I've asked for today's debate because we, as parliamentarians, must maintain the focus on children that the state is responsible for. From my perspective, as being a foster carer for 25 years, a member of an adoption panel for a decade, and a lead member of a Tier 1 local authority, I've seen the pressures build at the same time as the resources and support have declined. The number of children in care has increased by 28% since 2010. The number of children in residential care has increased by 102% since 2010. So the question is, what has caused these huge spikes? And of course, there will be various factors and no single consensus view. And it would only be fair to say that the number of unaccompanied asylum seekers in care has more than doubled in that period. But to me, there are two main factors. Firstly, the significant rise in poverty starting during austerity, coupled with a housing crisis, has pushed more families to the brink. A report by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation found that approximately 3.8 million people experienced destitution in 2022. I'll give way.
Speaking to the honourable gentleman beforehand, first of all, I can congratulate him on this. And I told him the story from Northern Ireland. They're a lovely story, so it is. It's one reminds me of the goodness of this world and when we look at things. The man from Northern Ireland is a foster dad himself, created a company called creating fashionable and good quality bags called Mad Lug. The idea behind this is when you purchase a bag, one is also given to a child in care to carry their personal possessions. The dignity this gives is admirable. So does the honourable member not agree that companies like these who seek to improve the self-worth and dignity of those children should be encouraged and should be supported?
Well, thank you for the member's intervention. I do recognise that children going to a placement with plastic bags, and it is heartbreaking. What a fabulous thing the member raises. So Joseph Rowntree Foundation found that approximately 3.8 million people experienced destitution in 2022, including approximately 1 million children, nearly triple the number in 2017. And the second issue, Sir John, was the withdrawal of universal early help. Sure Start, as was, which was withdrawn at different speeds and up to differing degrees around the country as local authorities removed their discretionary spending due to losing revenue support from the previous government. However, it went from being a universal service to a targeted one. And the spending on early help is now 1.8 billion a year less than it was in 2010. And here's the kicker. We're now spending more on children's residential placements than we are on early help. Early help did exactly what it said on the tin. It provided parents with health and well-being support, parenting advice, childcare and learning and support for children with special needs. There were benefits to social care and to health. Indeed, the IFS study found that Sure Start prevented so many children from being hospitalised that it saved the NHS the equivalent of a third of the entire Sure Start budget. The IFS also stated that Sure Start almost certainly delivered benefits significantly greater than its cost. So the next question is, why have the number of residential placements increased so much faster than the increase in children in care? I will give way.
He's giving a really moving account, I think, of some of the structural factors underpinning the rise in personal trauma that's led to more children in the care system. At the moment, though, those placed in the formal care system get access to therapeutic support directly, whereas those placed with kinship carers, often due to anomalies within how they're treated, don't have that same level of support. Would he agree with me that now would be a good time to start to review the level of therapeutic support open to those in kinship care who might have experienced exactly the same personal traumas as those in the more formal care system?
Thank you for that intervention. I do agree, and it appears as though the government is expanding services available to children in kinship care, and that would sound like a good thing. I would like every child in care to have therapeutic support, because let's face it, they all need it. They're all massively traumatised by something. The next question is, why have the number of residential placements increased so much faster than the increase in children in care? And the answer is simple. The number of foster families has remained fairly flat in the same period, and this is despite authorities and independent fostering agencies' significant efforts to attract new carers. I'll give you a, yeah.
Some time ago, I worked in international development roles, and for some time I worked with former orphanage children in Eastern Bloc countries in the former Soviet Union, including Bulgaria, Romania and Moldova, to name a few. And it was abundantly clear then that children are better off raised within families. So would the Honourable Member agree with me that we should be doing much, much more to support fostering and adoption processes without, of course, losing our grip over safeguarding practices?
Yes, thank you for the member for the intervention. Obviously, I want children to stay in the family network as much as possible, and I think the recent bill does support that with family group decision making and kinship care offers. So hopefully there will be more children staying in a familiar network, which obviously is better for the child and better for the state, let's face it. So yes, I thank you, the member, for the intervention. There were a couple of positive innovations from the previous government on fostering. They came quite late on and weren't extended to all areas, but they are worth pursuing. Firstly, regionalisation. Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire have combined along East Midlands mayoral authority lines to form Foster for East Midlands, to create a combined and increased marketing resource. And the results are positive, especially against a backdrop of UK-wide fostering inquiry numbers falling. I did, however, in preparation for today, do the obligatory Google search for fostering in Derbyshire to replicate what a potential new foster carer might find online. And I'm afraid Foster for East Midlands was the 5th hit after 4 sponsored ads. The ability for independents to outspend even combined local authority budgets shouldn't be a surprise, given the significant cost of independent placements compared to local authority placements. The reality is that it's the taxpayer that's paying for them to outspend local authorities. The other recent positive innovation is Mockingbird. One of the most cited reasons for foster carers leaving the role is the lack of support. It's easy for new foster carers to feel isolated given the nature of the role. And Mockingbird puts a constellation of new carers around an experienced foster carer who will guide and support them, as well as enabling support networks to build between the carers. So, John, if we can't get enough new foster carers into the system, we need to ensure that the ones we have don't leave unnecessarily. And this support is meaning fewer placement breakdowns and less disruption for children's lives. So, Sir John, for full disclosure, I'll give way.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way, and he's making a very powerful speech and bringing in his personal experience in this area. He talked about the importance of support, and I wanted to bring in the specific importance of advocacy services, who are individuals, as he will know, who advise children on their rights when receiving social care services. It can be transformative to the lives of children, but the Children's Commissioner has found that many children are not receiving support from an advocate despite being referred by their local authority. So could I ask him, does he agree with me that if we are trying to protect the most vulnerable, which he clearly is passionate about, a good starting point is to prioritise advocates so that children actually feel like they're being listened to?
Thank you for that intervention. I absolutely do agree, and you know, the voice of the child is key at every step of the way here. We must listen to children, so advocacy is absolutely fundamental. Yeah, so John, for full disclosure, I haven't received fostering allowances since last May, as I've been busy doing other things. So I have nothing to gain by saying this, but to the 32% of local authorities who pay allowances below the national minimum allowance, I would say you won't attract new foster carers based on altruism alone. They need a reasonable amount of remuneration like anyone else. So, John, the result of more children without the corresponding number of extra foster carers means a crisis in placement sufficiency. It means more children in highly expensive residential placements and, in many cases, a great distance from their hometowns. And there's a very good chance that they will end up in the north. I will give way.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. and he brings a very important debate, which I thank him for. In my constituency of Horsham, a family have approached me. They are kinship carers for their grandson. And they feel that they are discriminated against in a system which gives more resources and attention to children in care rather than kinship carers. Given the shortage of places in foster care, would he agree that we need to do everything we can to balance up kinship carers' receipt of support?
Again, for the intervention, and surprisingly, I definitely agree. Of course, we need to support children in kinship care. I'm sure the Minister will talk about kinship care as well, but there is, I'm very glad to say, a part of the bill, children wellbeing in schools, requiring an offer for local authorities to make on kinship care, which is very positive. Not sure I've got to now. Okay, so it means more children in highly expensive residential placements and in many cases a great distance from their hometown. And there's a very good chance that they will end up in the northwest, as that's where a quarter of children's homes are located. Of course, some children need to be placed away from familiar surroundings, but not on this scale. It is great to see that the government is looking to address this issue through the planning process so that homes can more easily be created where they're needed. And personally, I'd like to see a focus on smaller homes as they feel less institutionalised and are easier to integrate into the community. But the cost, Sir John, of some of these residential children's home placements is extraordinary, and it is one of the factors that's pushing councils ever closer to Section 114 notices. The cost of looked after children has risen from 3.1 billion in 2009-10 to 7 billion in 22-23. I will give way.
The Honourable Member is making a fantastic speech, giving us great insight to his experience both as a foster carer but also as a lead member. A recent survey from the National Leaving Care Benchmarking Forum found that 77% of children who have experience of care struggle to afford food. 3/4 said the cost of living crisis has damaged their mental health. Does he agree that this requires a cross-government, cross-agency, cross-sector approach, and learning from the best within the sector, including from my own council, Telford Region Council, that was only last year recognised as a national leader in the work that it's doing in this space?
Well, again, thank you for the intervention. I think all of government, all councils need to do more. They need to understand that children in care, we need to do more for them to create a level playing field because they have such difficult issues to overcome. So I completely agree. Yeah, at the same time as the cost of children in care went up to 7 billion, local councils' overall core funding has gone down by 9% in real terms. So the government is absolutely right to introduce a financial oversight scheme, as some providers have made excessive profits. It was widely reported that the largest 20 national providers of children's placements collectively made profits of £310 million in 21-22. So, Sir John, we must, of course, focus on outcomes for children in care, and they are historically and currently very poor. In 2018-19, just 6.8% of children in care received a grade 5 or above in English and maths, compared to 43.2% amongst all children. And in turn, that explains why just 22% of care leavers aged 27 are in employment. And even when they are in employment, there's a £6,000 pay gap between care leavers and those in the general population. It would be easy to blame educators or the care sector for this problem, but the reality is these children have suffered some sort of significant trauma in their lives, whether that's neglect, abuse or something else. It's never good. I will give way.
Thank you, Sir John, and thank you to the Honourable Member for bringing this important subject to Westminster Hall. He mentioned about the impacts that entering care is having on many children, and he's probably aware that nearly 1/3 of children in kinship care, just over 31%, have diagnosed or suspected social, emotional, mental health needs. And it's really important, whilst we recognise and congratulate the government on its recent announcements for kinship carers in the recent budget, that we also make sure that we make those tools available to those children and those families to get the mental health support that they need.
Thank you again to the Honourable Member. There's clearly a theme here, And I'm sure the Minister will address this growing consensus that kinship care needs the support that children in care receive. So yes, what children have suffered is obviously never good. They've experienced those problems, and they're bound to be impacted by that experience. That's not to say that we accept poor results, it's just to put them in context. It needs to be said that the statistics show that children who have been in care for longer than 12 months receive better grades than children who have been in care for less than 12 months. And that makes sense to me because the longer they are in care, the longer they have the stability in their home lives and a focus on education from their foster carers or residential care workers. It's also worth saying that in my experience, the virtual school is a real positive for the child. And this is supported by the fact that persistent absence at school, which has been a national issue since COVID, is actually better amongst the children in care cohort than it is amongst the overall school population. So, Sir John, with more children, less money and a placement sufficiency crisis, we need to put much more focus on keeping families together and children out of care wherever it is possible and safe to do so. So mandating local authorities to offer family group decision making is a big step forward. The evidence shows that they prevent a significant number of children from going into care in the first place and keep them out of care going forward. And following on from family group decision making, the Children Wellbeing in Schools Bill will require all councils to publish a kinship offer, as we've heard, so that more children can stay in more familiar surroundings, and these children will be further supported by the virtual school. And on the subject of the virtual school, I would, with corporate parenting in mind, encourage the government to consider taking up the recommendation from the Education Select Committee to give virtual school heads statutory powers over the process of school allocation. And on the subject of corporate parenting, we need to be conscious that this is everyone's responsibility, and all government departments should now consider how they can give that bit extra for children in care. And when children have left care, we need to go on supporting. And through staying close, young people leaving residential care will be afforded that bit of extra support to keep them in their property or to keep them in education or support their general well-being. This is another scheme that's bearing fruit, and I'm glad to say that staying close will be being expanded by the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill. So, Sir John, there are many positives to take from the bill, and just 7 months into the new administration, this is a big step forward. But I finish almost where I started, with early help. The previous government introduced, in some areas, family hubs. This is universal early help from pregnancy onwards. The early signs are very encouraging, and I would ask the Minister and the Secretary of State to consider extending this programme as soon as possible. It is the ultimate example of invest to save. Sir John, prevention is better than cure, and it's also cheaper.
I'm grateful. The question is that this House has considered government policy on children in care. I understand that the member for Telford has indicated that he wants to make a school contribution. Is that the case or not? Oh, very good. In that case, I move directly to the Minister for Children and Families, Janet Davey.
Thank you, Sir John Hayes. It's a privilege to speak as you as Chair. And I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Derbyshire Dales, for securing a debate on the important subject of children in care. And I thank the many honourable members and honourable friends for their various interventions. And I will attempt, in the time that I have, to respond as much as possible. As he has been a foster carer for many years, I know this is very much a subject which is close to his heart. And as a former children and family social worker and fostering manager in social work, it is also a subject very close to my heart as well. And I'm delighted and proud to be part of a government that is making such a difference for children in care. And I would also like to take the opportunity to thank all foster carers for the care that they provide to foster children up and down and across our country. Children in care are among the most vulnerable in our society. And my honourable friend for Derbyshire Dales is quite right and correct when he says that the number of children in care has increased year on under the previous government since 2010. The problems facing the children's care system were set out in a review led by my honourable friend, the member for Whitehaven and Workington in 2022. The Competition and Markets Authority also reported on failings in the children's social care market that year. Both called for radical action. This government inherited a care system that is broken and failing too many children, despite the heroic efforts of social workers, carers and all of those who champion children's outcomes. We are taking action. Since the last election, we have, number one, announced funding in the budget to enable more children to stay in family-centred environments, which included the largest ever national investment in kinship care of £40 million. Number two, we published a policy statement with ambitious plans to reform children's social care, to focus a system towards early help for families. And three, happy to give way.
I thank the Minister for giving way. On the point about early intervention and prevention, I just want to thank the Minister for agreeing to come to Sussex later on this year to meet me and an organisation called PAUSE, who work with mothers who've had a child taken into care. They do work across a number of local authorities, but by no means all. And I very much hope that the government will look favourably upon their work and enable more funding to support them in more areas.
Minister?
Yeah, I thank you for that intervention, and I look forward to visiting Sussex in due course. We announced 2 grants to the local government finance settlement that will double settlement investment in preventative children's services to over £500 million in 2025-26. We've introduced legislation to underpin our reforms through the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bills. The actions we plan to take do not stop there. And we have a vision to improve services for children in care, and we are indeed on that journey. Foster carers offer crucial support to some of the most vulnerable children in our society. They provide love, stability and compassion to children and young people when they need it most. We recognise that there are sufficient challenges around foster care, and we want to recruit more foster carers so that foster care is available for more children who need it in the places where they live. And on that point, anybody who has listened to this debate and is interested in becoming a foster carer, then please do contact your local authority and children's services. In the autumn budget, we announced an additional £15 million to expand the fostering recruitment and retention programme. My department is currently supporting 2/3 of local authorities across England in 10 regional hubs. The extra funding will expand this approach to make sure every local authority has access to this support. The regional hubs support foster carers from their first inquiry through to providing a retention model. Our aim is to boost the number of approvals of those who wish to apply to become foster carers, as well as to take further steps to retain those that we have. I note my honourable friend's comments about about needing to retain foster carers, and I absolutely agree with him. No foster carer should be financially disadvantaged because of their fostering role. We expect all foster carers to receive at least the weekly national minimum allowance in addition to any agreed expenses to cover the full cost of caring for each child placed with them. In January, local authorities were sent a letter to remind them that of their duty to provide the national minimum allowance and to notify them of the latest 3.55% uplift. Fostering service providers can choose to pay above the minimum allowance or pay additional fees. Qualifying care relief is a tax relief that is also available to support foster carers. The threshold for this has been raised in recent years to ensure the vast majority of foster carers will not pay tax on their care income. We encourage fostering service providers to adhere to the Foster Care Charter. This sets out clear principles for how foster carers should be treated and recognises their invaluable work. For most children in care, foster care is the best option when they cannot live in kinship arrangements, and indeed kinship is something that has been mentioned across this floor. Kinship is an area where the government is investing, and we recognise that for some young people, kinship is absolutely where they need to be, and those kinship carers do need support to enable them to care for their children. We announced 90 million capital funding in the autumn budget to fund new places in children's homes and to secure children's homes, and we are using this money in two ways. Firstly, we're providing funding to maintain existing provision and expand capacity across both secure and open children's homes. This will provide 180 additional open children's homes placements by late 2025. It will also help local authorities to support our most vulnerable children accommodated in specialist care in secure children's homes, including continuing plans to create 2 brand new secure homes in London and the West Midlands. We recognise that we need a variation of care dependent on the care needs of that child. Secondly, we are taking action to provide increased provision specifically for children with multiple complex needs who have been or at risk of being deprived of their liberty. For such children, their needs will be a response to complex ongoing trauma. We have invited local authorities to bid for new capital funding to build 200 new places in local authority children's homes. Local authorities and health partners will be encouraged to work together to deliver suitable packages of care and plans to support these young people. Alongside this, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill will legislate to create a new statutory mechanism that allows children with complex needs to be placed in safe, flexible and secure community-based provision which keeps children safe. All young people should receive consistently high-quality care. To improve the quality of children's homes, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools will legislate to strengthen Ofstet's power to hold provider groups to account where there are quality issues. I would now like to turn to the children's care market. The current children's social care placement market is dysfunctional. It is not delivering enough safe, loving homes for children in the right parts of the country at a sustainable cost to the taxpayer. Some councils, as it has already been mentioned, are on the brink of bankruptcy, in part due to the rising cost of spending on children in care. This is while some providers are making excess profits, despite sometimes providing subpar care for our most vulnerable children. The government is clear that profiteering from vulnerable children in care is absolutely unacceptable. And we are committed to stamping it out where it occurs in the children's social care market. We are introducing a package of measures to fix this. These measures will rebalance the market, improve competition, regulation and commissioning of placements. This will shine a light on the levels of profit being made and bring greater visibility to the prices local authorities are paying. These measures are in the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, form a key part of our strategy to address the problems of the market. As I draw to a close, I am enormously grateful to my honourable friends for speaking so eloquently and passionately about children in care, about his experiences and about the many issues to do with children's social care. This is a subject that means a great deal to him and also to me and to our government. We need to get this right. There is a lot to do. And I acknowledge the dedication that he has shown in his working life. Our opportunity mission is focused on breaking the link between children's backgrounds and their success. I am determined to improve the life chances and to support children in care. This government has an ambitious plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered government policy on children in care. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order. Thank you. Great. Good to see you. Hello. I'm going to show you no favouritism. You know that. No favouritism.
Is that right?
I'm very strict in the chair.
Good. I would hope you